All right. You're recording, my friend. And then if anything
Right.
comes up, like look, I mean, yeah, there's something. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Simply Samurai, aka Spencer Waddell and the Wandering Sword. And today we have a special guest for you. We have Bobby Maximus, the world's strongest nerd. This man has accomplished so many feats of strength from also happy belated birthday, my friend.
Thank you.
And 46 years old, is it?
Yes, 46 as of yesterday.
That's awesome. 46 and strong. So this man is a nerd on the best level, so he is in good company. We're just going to get you introduced to him. And Bobby, if you'd introduce yourself to my viewers, thank you very much.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I really, really appreciate it. My name is Bobby Maximus. You said the world's strongest nerd. I've done a bunch of stuff, I guess. I fought in the UFC. I'm the oldest competitor ever in the Ultimate Fighter reality series. Men's Health named me one of the 100 fittest men of all time. I wrote a best-selling book for Men's Health. I've managed to turn a passion into a career, which I think is probably the thing I'm most proud of. You know, a lot of people in life, I feel like we give up on our dreams. You know, like what did a 4-year-old Spencer wanted to do? It wasn't, you know, it wasn't a CPA, or it wasn't like a tax accountant, or it wasn't a number cruncher, or it wasn't a desk worker. Like you probably wanted to be, I don't know, an astronaut, a pirate, a barbarian. You know, my 4-year-old, he just told me he wants to be. We've been watching One Piece. He wants to be the king of the pirates now, like Monkey D. Luffy. And I'm like, okay, like why can't you go be a pirate? And I'm not saying I want him to sink ships and you know cannonball people and stuff. I'm just saying that's what we want it to be. And so the fact that I've managed to turn a passion into a career, I think is my greatest accomplishment.
That's absolutely outstanding. I 100% agree. I mean, you hit the nail right in the head. I did think about astronaut for a while, and then after that, and learning I don't really like confined spaces that much, even though now I put a helmet on my head for a living, so it's different, but I have a sword, and I've always wanted to be either a knight or a warrior and just travel and do things. I think that's why I felt such a connection when we met, thanks to Sydney, Bombshell with the Barbell, at the Anaheim Fit Expo, and I was like, who is this? And she's like, this is Bobby Maximus. I had to look you up because I didn't know about it at the time. I was like, this man seems like he understands exactly what I'm all about. And I was very happy to have a little talks with you, and now I get to talk with you more.
But what an amazing thing! Like off topic, it's kind of on topic actually, but like looking at you, what an amazing thing that you can make a living off something you genuinely love and would probably do for free, right? Like if you look at the office behind me, you'll see some Squirtles, you'll see a Pikachu, you'll see some Doctor Who, you'll see a Lego tower over here. This is the Tower of Orthanc, right? Over off screen, I've got the giant Rivendell set. You'll see some Magic the Gathering cards. Like that's stuff that I do for free. That's stuff I love. That's stuff that if I was a CPA, if I was a financial analyst, that's what I'd spend my hard-earned money on. But what an amazing world that I actually recently got paid by Magic the Gathering to do some influence work for them. The 12-year-old in me, the 4-year-old in me, the 8-year-old in me, the 15-year-old in me was screaming for the rooftops like we made it. You know what I'm saying? And so when I look at you, what a great thing that you can go to a fitness expo and play with swords and get paid for that. Like that to me is a sign that regardless of the monetary value attached to it, that in terms of like on an emotional level, you've made it, my friend. Like that's the dream. If you can turn your passion, something you would do for free, something that you genuinely love into your vocation, that's when you've really, really achieved what I call true success.
Thank you so much, brother. And I feel the same way. And that's amazing. My 13-year-old and me or 14-year-old is screaming out loud when you got to do that for Magic the Gathering. That's the dream. Like one day I'd love to do more creation. The sky's the limit now, right? In this day and age, all you have to do is reach out, start working on things, and they're looking to diversify their clientele. I mean, you've been a big nerd of all different levels, especially Magic when we talked about that, which viewers you can get. We're going to get deep into this a little bit later, but just as much as playing the card game, meeting the people, the decks, the customization, all these things are things that we enjoy. And you also get to destroy the stigma of that all nerds are out of shape, not doing things, which are not hating on everybody else, but you can be in shape and be competitive and have this level of fitness and still enjoy all levels of nerd culture.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, right? Like, it's actually funny with the advent of Marvel. I've been on a couple of panels at Comic-Con about this exact topic. Mm-hmm. But it's funny with Marvel. Marvel made nerddom cool again, in a way, right? Like, when I was growing up, I had Wolverine comics, I had Hulk comics. Like, I was a Marvel guy. I also love DC. I have a Superman tattoo on my back. I love all things comic books. But that wasn't necessarily cool. It wasn't necessarily in vogue. And in the 1980s, maybe it was the early 90s, the Batman movie with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson came out. And that was kind of cool. And it was great. And everyone liked Batman. And then the Ninja Turtles came out. And that was really cool. And then it kind of died down.
Yeah.
And then Blade, who's my favorite superhero by a mile, he really made superheroes cool. And I'm so glad in the new Deadpool Wolverine, they did like a little homage to him. And apparently when he made his cameo, theaters all over the world were screaming because he is the godfather of the modern superhero. Like, if you go watch Blade 1, if you watch Blade 2, those movies are just so slick and so cool and so well done. And it made it not dorky to be a nerd, right?
No.
But then it kind of died down again. And then when Marvel hit with the Avengers and their universe and the multiverse and all the things, all of a sudden nerddom became kind of cool again. And then you look on, the periphery of that, you've got Lord of the Rings, which was huge business, The Hobbit, which was huge business, all the Comic Cons, all the things. It became very clear that there was a lot more closet nerds out there than people had anticipated. And every guy loves this stuff, right? And so what I always say is, I'm no different than you. And it's funny that I got this, and I'm not saying you, but the viewer. Like, if you're a nerd and you're watching this, we're the exact same person, except I'm just drinking a protein shake. You might be drinking a soda. Like, but in terms of like the love of this stuff, we're like, I think it's a universal language.
100%.
We all love these things.
100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. Where it was cool, it became cool. And you just turned 36. I'm 38. So still close to the generation. But I remember going to high school, and for me, anime, things started, Wu-Tang Clan, all this stuff, when they started talking about Shaolin films. It wasn't cool for Dragon Ball Z. It wasn't cool for all these things at the time. But then it's interesting how anime started growing up and getting bigger and more, especially a lot of gym personalities and people.
I think it always was cool. People just didn't talk about it.
Ooh,
right?
That's a good point.
And here's my thing, right? Let's be serious. Let's have a talk. And I'm not trying to exclude the ladies in this, because I'll include them well. But just in general, and I'm going to speak about men. You name me a man that doesn't like swinging a sword. You name me a man that doesn't like a movie with a lot of action in it. You name me a man that hasn't owned a comic book or a Lego set in his life. Like, it's you can call me a nerd if you want. You can use that as a pejorative term. You can try to put me down, but don't act like you've never done it.
I think you're 100% correct.
Like, there was an interview I saw today on social media with Vin Diesel, and I think it was Jimmy Kimmel was ribbing him about.
Oh yeah.
Like, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons all the time. He's like, I kind of picture you as the guy to beat up the Dungeons and Dragons players. Like, no, I was obsessed with it. Like, who doesn't love that? It's funny, and there's levels of nerddom, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I've got some Legos. I've got
you work on that tower.
Yeah, I've got the tower. I've got some Magic the Gathering cards. I got some Harry Potter books on my shelf. Okay, that's all great. I can sit here and I can make fun of LARPing, live action role playing, if you don't know what that is. But then there's a part of me that, like, I don't know. I think it would be kind of fun to dress up in a suit of armor and go fight in a park. Like, there's the 4-year-old in me is screaming, let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that. You know what I mean? And so I think it always was cool. I think there was just a stigma around it, and people were just scared to talk about it because it used to be it was something that you could get made fun of for.
Yeah, and let's face it, especially the time that hasn't changed since the beginning of time, except for now, of course, social media is being a lot more rampant, and I think kids even have this whole other level of trying to be cool, especially by making their TikToks and other things. And I fall into doing that because I try to reach out, because my goal is to reach people with swords. And that's part where we talked about. There are some people that like, oh, well, you do this stuff or the LARPs. And I'm like, no, it's kind of fun to go and do some things. Now, do I really like to get in there and do the AMA where we're actually hitting each other with real steel and working on combative moves where it gets in the realm of more mixed martial arts? 100%. But I still like to go out with my friends. And that's when the 13-year-old in me is like, do you want to go and dress up and do this? I'm like, yeah, I do. And you find a cool crew to do it. And you make new friends. You go on adventures. It's actually quite interesting. So, yeah, I think that's more and more people need to get in touch with that whole, what would 13-year-old Spencer, what would 13-year-old Bobby want me to do right now? And I know, that now they look at it like, how do I get there? How do I make sure that I still get to where you are now? I'm like, just keep on believing, bud. Just keep on believing.
And that's what I want to do. It was actually interesting that we met at Fit Expo because I was in a couple of panels there. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions that was directed at me was, what do you do to reconnect? What do you do to unwind? What do you do when you're having a bad day, when you feel stress? What do you do to ground yourself again? And I literally ask myself, what would the 7-year-old Bobby Maximus want? Package of Magic the Gathering cards. He'd want a Lego set. He'd want, like the I don't know, maybe this is actually pretty cool.
Oh, it's a Ninja Turtles. Yes.
But it's like,
oh, it's like a little mini one. Oh, that's
all
so cool.
DVDs. It's like the entire series. Like, how cool it was when I bought this? And so my thing is, and I joke about this, I'm a 7-year-old, but a 7-year-old with a credit card and a big limit. So when I'm feeling bad, I go live my dream. What would the 7-year-old me want? And then I go buy it. And it makes me so happy. It brings me genuine joy. And to drive that point home, and I think I've said this before, and I think it's the most important conclusion that I have come to. And hopefully you can see this on the screen. Look how happy this dude is.
Yeah.
He got a pirate costume. It costs like $20 from Costco. And he thinks he is the coolest. He is the happiest. Ear to ear smile, like a child getting a toy at Christmas. We lose that as adults. Yeah. Last year we got him a costume, and he literally clapped and danced for joy. As an adult, what would it take you to actually break out into a dance and clap? And for a lot of people, the answer is nothing. Like we lose that joy. You understand what I mean? Like, and so that's what I try to reconnect with and take. Pride's the wrong word. I want to find joy in the little things versus constantly trying to get, constantly trying to want, constantly worried about what else I could have, or this isn't good enough. Like, how cool would it be to be able to do this and then really just dive in and feel that joy?
That's 100%. I think that is the way to be. And to also touch on something you said before, Superman was my favorite superhero growing up. And it was with loving the fact that he always did what was right. He had a choice to not do so, and he tried to use his powers for good. And of course, he still had conflict because sometimes he just wanted to be a normal person. This for you, like when you first started your nerd journey, what was it for you that made you realize that you were a nerd and in the nerd space? And then when did you start just accepting it?
Growing up, and this may come as a disbelief to people, because when you see me, and obviously I'm sitting down, but I'm 6'3", I'm 240 pounds. I fought in the UFC. I looked the part. you would think I was always athletic. You would think I was always given the gift, etc. It was actually quite the opposite. I was bullied fairly heavily till I was 15, 16 years old. I was always the last pick for every team. It wasn't that I was overly small, but I was shy and timid, and kids made fun of me all the time. It culminated for me when I was 15 years old. These 4 kids beat me up in gym class and they broke my collarbone. I was the kid that would get his Magic the Gathering cards ripped up. I was a kid that would get punched in the face on the bus. I was the kid that was always taught by my parents to turn the other cheek, tell the teacher, rise above, be kind to everybody. Okay, great. And like any kid, I liked comic books and superheroes and Legos and had a natural, I think every kid has a natural love of those things, like we were saying. And the Magic the Gathering room at school, it really, in grade 9, it was scary going to a big school. Being a freshman, it was really the only room where I felt accepted, where I didn't feel judged, where you could just go in and hang out. Like it was a safe space, almost you can sit at our table mentality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that to me cemented a lifelong love of the game, because that's the first place I really felt accepted, felt cool, felt wanted, felt valued. And so I've loved that stuff ever since then. And I've just never, I suppose I've never let go of it.
That's awesome. I think that's really awesome. I definitely can relate with that. Me and my little brother would go to our little comic book shop every Saturday after watch Saturday morning cartoons, get our chores done, and we'd go play Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I'd play with the Magic the Gathering after I started getting older. And then the Magic Gathering kids were like, hey, you're seeing cool. Come play with us in this. And that's when I really enjoyed that too. And it was this level of acceptance, respect, and belonging. So I think you're 100% right. Now, talking about safe spaces and now getting into more of a dangerous space, there are so many people that have never stepped into a ring. I've only done some amateur MMA fights. Now I'm doing professional MMA fights. But can you tell us about the start of your UFC/MMA career?
Yeah, and so I don't know how PG I have to be on your show.
No, it's fine.
Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, you're allowed to swear. There's some, like, most of the time for my viewers, there are more people around my age. Maybe we get some.
I just want to make sure. I try to be polite in that regard, right?
No, I appreciate that. No, for this one, it's fine. And I just
and so okay, good. So I was wrestling. My goal was to make the Olympics. I didn't make the Olympics. Frankly, I wasn't. It didn't work out for me. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why, right? I probably wasn't talented enough. Probably wasn't good enough. Probably didn't work hard enough. Could have done things a little different. I mean, I don't know, but I didn't make the Olympics.
Gotcha.
And I felt a void in my life because I didn't know what else to do. And I was fortunate enough to meet a guy by the name of Sean Tompkins, who unfortunately died in 2011, but he's a legendary MMA coach. He coached Mark Hominick, Sammy Stout, me. He was connected very closely to Boss Rutan. He'd worked with Jeff Curran. He worked with Dan Henderson. And I was lucky enough to meet him in London, Ontario. Mm-hmm. And some of his guys, because it was mixed martial arts, they needed some wrestling help. And so he had me come to the club and just help guys with some wrestling. And because I was there, I started kickboxing and I started doing some submission grappling. And before long, he said, you could be really good at this. And so he said, do you want to come to Edmonton? And Edmonton is, across the country for me. Yeah. And he's like, do you want to punch somebody in the face, bang a few ring girls, and make $500? And I'm like, I mean, say less, like say what? Like what's the catch? Yeah. Like I do this for free. Like they're paying for my flight and my hotel. Like really? So I went out and I beat some dude up and it was awesome People were screaming. There had to be 5,000 people there. They were cheering. We went out. We partied. Like it was the best day of my life. There was like no thrill like that.
Yeah.
And then I did it again, and I won again. And I did it again, and I won again. And then I get called to be on the Ultimate Fighter reality show. I was on season 2. That's how old I am. We're on season, I think, 33 right now. But then before I knew it, I was in the UFC. So I want to tell you some origin story about, I remember watching the UFC #1, and I knew from that minute that was my call. That's all BS, man. I was in the right place at the right time. I was good at wrestling. It became clear I was pretty good at kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And I got an opportunity to go have some fun, and I had a lot of fun. And then I did it again and did it again. And then I found myself in the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
That's awesome. That's so... Now, for you are excited about it. Some people, when they talk about walking in the cage and the cage closes behind them, and they feel this just swelling, not I want to say dread, but just it's real then. Although I think when you train level, this is what you're going to do, it's real the whole time.
Yep.
The first time stepping into that cage, actually getting announced, how did that feel? Other than just like you won, obviously, so it's amazing. But how did it feel?
So there's 2 answers, and 2 things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
1, I was terrified. I was anxious. I was nervous. I was scared. I was angry. Like I was elated. All the feels. Mm-hmm. The other answer is I have no idea because I don't remember how I felt. Like you're the first time, and here's a story I tell.
Sure.
The first fight I ever had, I don't remember a thing that happened. I know what happened because I watched it on tape.
Sure.
But you are just like the proverbial, you're seeing red. By my 8th and 9th fight, I could like wave to somebody in the audience in the middle of the fight. It just became more comfortable, if you will, because the more you do it, the more desensitized you get to it. Yeah. So I'm sure I felt terrified and nervous and anxious. And I remember all that before the fight. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, my first fight, I don't really have a recollection of it except that I did it.
That's awesome, though. That's really cool. And I can totally relate with that. First time getting in the cage, Nashville, smaller crowd, but getting in there. And I've fought many times before, doing the SCA, Society of Creative Anachronism, where it's like you're in front of lots of people, but there's something different about that cage. And the fighting Jacob Rusek, awesome guy, doing a longsword fight. But it kind of made me go, oh, I'm stuck in here. And then I'd want to say, like, haha, yeah, but go ahead.
Also, the fear of getting hurt, the fear of getting punched in the face, the fear of, and I think it's actually even worse than that, the fear of what will other people say and what will other people think. Because here's the deal, and you can relate to this. Mm-hmm. It's one thing if I get beat up in a bar on a Friday night and I go home and nobody really knows.
Sure.
It's another thing to get your ass whipped in front of 2 million people on a pay-per-view. Like it is such a different level of stress, of pressure, of what are your friends going to think when you have to, go back and you're like, man, I got starched on Saturday. Like I got destroyed and you lost. Like that's actually, I'll tell you, that's the most difficult part of fighting. It's not the fighting. Mm-mm. It's the 3-month lead up to the fight. It's the interviews. It's the podcast. It's the fear of how people will judge you if you lose. It's the fear of if I don't win, I'm not going to get my contract renewed and I'm not going to make any more money and I might lose a sponsor. And it's the best fighter is not always the best fighter. Mm-mm. If you wanted to figure out the best fighter between you and I, let's just in a back alley, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
When we have to fight at the Fit Expo in front of all our peers and everybody's watching, and it's about skill, but it becomes less about skill and more about psychologically who handles that moment better.
100%. There's such a tribal level aspect to that where you're like, I don't want to embarrass my tribe. I don't want to embarrass my people, my coach, my significant other, even
Yep.
people that you don't know. And that's for me. Losing this last fight at AMA, I'm glad that it was not a complete curb stomp, and I was invigorated. And I still haven't watched it yet. Some of my friends have gone back there, and I'm gonna I need to watch it so I can learn. But I'm glad that people enjoyed it. I'm glad that at the end, getting out there, people were like, keep your head up, keep your head up. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm like, I'm mad at myself because I want to train more, but I use that and feel that. But that's, I think, honestly, the hardest thing about it.
Well, the bright lights, it changes stuff. So now imagine you and I break in your house in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
That's like literally a fight of who's the bigger wolf.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fight, right? But again, you and I fight at FitCon. You're thinking, what happens if I lose to Bobby? Is he going to get my Dragon Slayer sponsorship? Is he going to get... And I'm thinking, man, I fought in the UFC. If I lose to Spencer, like, the people are going to look at, like, and then you're playing this whole mind game. And again, it's who accepts that moment better. And that's why you'll see people, and I'm sure you've seen it in sword fighting, that are unbeatable in the gym.
Yes.
They're unbeatable in the street. They're unbeatable in a life and death situation, whatever. You put them in a competition and they just don't perform well because they can't, whatever reason, they're not wired to deal with that situation.
Yeah, and I think Lisa's the sponsorships, the wonderiness, just the people have this acclaim, and it's interesting for with steel or armored fighting now. I wanted to have some people cross over, and not saying any names or anything because we're not here to do that part, but we know that some people that are bigger names that might help raise up the sport, they also think about who am I going to fight, and they don't want to get housed or anything too because they have their name on the other side.
That's exactly it, right?
And it's a weird in between where I wish our world worked where it's like, hey, let's just have fun. And I think it might take some stuff if it's an exhibition match and you just kind of fought to the point, but then not pulling punches. That's where it gets hard because people are like, oh, you took it easy. But still just letting people know that it's fun. Who was it? The guy that plays Venom, Eddie Brock, Hardy, Tom
Hardy, yeah.
Yeah, he was in Essex overseas, and he did some armored combat for a little bit, and he enjoyed it. And it was just kind of a like a little exhibition. So he didn't get disgraced. He didn't get this part there. At the end, he's like, it's not BJJ, but it's still really fun. And that was probably the best thing that could come from that. But it's interesting.
You know, though, there's another interesting story that I tell at seminars about mindset.
Please.
During, and I don't want to mention it on the podcast because your engagement will get critically low. Remember that thing that happened in March of 2020 where there's all kinds of shutdowns and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
NBA players played in the bubble.
Oh.
And now imagine a normal NBA player is playing 80 games a season. They're seeing their family. They have all the comforts on the road. They're in hotel rooms. They're playing in front of 25,000 people a night. And that's what they're used to. And some people perform really, really well in that environment. And some people don't perform in that environment. And then they go play in the bubble. And the bubble doesn't have a live crowd. The bubble is pretty much empty. They're living in hotel rooms I think they were in there for 3 months.
So long.
They don't have the comforts of home. They don't have their families. And what happened was there were some guys that weren't necessarily that good in the standard league, but in the bubble, they excelled. And then there were guys that excelled in the regular league, but they didn't play well in the bubble. That's not a basketball skill issue.
No.
That's how you deal with the surroundings. And so that's a very, very, very real thing. And I'll give you the example again. There are guys that in the gym, they are unbeatable, but they just can't transfer over to the actual game or the actual competition. So, for me, one of the things that I use when I train people that I've always said is that the mind is primary. A strong mind is a catalyst for change. Like what happens up here is the biggest predeterminant of success. It's not your body.
That's accurate. And I think there's so much visualization training. I myself travel a lot. I do a lot of historical things. I do a lot of actual martial arts. I also do nerd things, Dragon Con, all this stuff. So I'm staying on top of doing my training while I'm in the hotel, doing hotel trainings, looking at some of the, if you guys haven't known, he also does coach for ladder. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yep. They have some really nice programs, a lot of things that you can do with just yourself, and I, and it helps. But just more to the fact is a lot of my skills after being a sword fighter since 2008 comes visually. When I start thinking about and doing visualizations, how is my mind going to handle things? And I think people don't talk about that enough when it comes to combat sports.
I agree 100%. It's not just physicality. There's so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's some good food for thought. Another point you made it, talk about the limelight, talking about these things on you. You've been in a movie, have you not? I'm looking at, is it Kill Shot?
Yes.
Yeah. How was that experience for you, if I may?
You know, it was a wonderful experience. Extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to do it. A couple things came out of it. One, acting is way harder than people think. Oh, way harder. Like you sit here at home and okay, actually, I'm going to go off on some of you nerds right now.
Get them.
All of you people that are complaining about the Rings of Power season 2, all of you people that complain about The Hobbit being, extended to 3 movies. All of you people who complain about the Marvel Universe or the Acolyte in Star Wars, go try to make a better show. Take your little iPhone, take your camera, order one from the internet. You go try to write a better script. The writing was terrible. You write better. The acting was awful. You do it. I wouldn't have. The cinematography was trashy. You get a camera and you make a better movie. My point is, I am so sick and tired of the nerd community crying that their movie, that their thing wasn't what they wanted. You go do better. Rant over, but I needed to address that. Acting is way harder than people give it credit for. Making a movie is way harder than people give it credit for. So there was that. And then number 2, what an amazing experience to be able to open up Amazon Prime on the TV and see my face. Like, what a wonderful, how cool is that? Like it, hate it, 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down. What an amazing experience to get to do that. That just filled me with gratitude.
That's so cool. Now, for you, did you get the part? Did you get on there because of your acclaim through UFC, because of your knowledge of all these things?
Somewhat. Okay. So actually, I wrote a book for Men's Health called Maximus Body. It's a best-selling book, and it's a training manual. It's got some workouts, it's got some nutrition, but it's got a lot of sports psychology and goal setting in it. Like, even if you're not into exercise, the first half of the book would help you be better at Magic the Gathering. It would help you be better at your relationship. It would help you be better with your job. It talks about things like silencing negative voices, setting goals, dealing with what other people think and say. It's a psychological manual. The director of the movie read my book and it sparked his transformation. It was the catalyst that he needed to get in shape. And so he was a fan, if you will. And he's like, I would love to put you in a movie. There's a part I'm thinking of. You're perfect for it. Would you like to do this? And yeah, of course, I would love to. I would be honored. And so I did it.
That's so cool. But that's the fact that I love how those stories work out. And we talk about it's who you know, but also who knows you. But you being yourself were able to spark this catalyst for this person and see this. And that's cool.
And something was born out of that. I want to revisit it. The fact that I said, like, this stuff's a lot harder than you think.
Oh, yeah.
It gave me a new appreciation for the shows that I love and allowed me to go back and give a second chance to some of the shows that I didn't love so much. Because it's easy to criticize, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, I don't like how that ended. I don't like how that turned out. I don't like how that, right? But when you realize the work that goes into it, you can focus on the enjoyment of it more than just the being nitpicky and cynical. You know what I mean? And
Very
so
much
that's
so.
why I've started to become very vocal about this. I actually let a bunch of people have it about the Rings of Power season 2 online the other day. Because I'm like, what are your writing credentials?
Yeah, do something.
You hate the writing. The writing's garbage. A 5-year-old could write better. What are your writing credentials? You go do better.
Because they have so much. The technology is amazing these days. You talk about get a phone, get something online. You can have the quality to do things, but then if you have the knowledge, people are making amazing fan films from
but again,
iPhones and
that takes a lot of talent and a lot of hard work. People think those things just pop up on the internet. No, you're complaining at home. You go do better. And I'm going to go off right now. It's the same guy who was watching House of Dragons. And it's, how dare you make one of the Targaryens black? There was no black people in nobility in the Middle Ages. And I'm like, you know what else there wasn't? Dragons and ice wizards. And like, really? Is this your complaint? You're raging because there's a black dwarf in Rings of Power.
Yeah.
That's your issue with the show, huh?
And a fantasy.
Got it. Okay, great. That's your criticism. Like, this is the stuff that I hate about the community.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. Especially
it's just there's always, and I'll say this because I said this earlier about the Magic the Gathering community.
Sure.
I feel like the nerd community back in my day, and I don't want to be the old guy that's like shouting, get off my lawn, but was really accepting, and something switched. And now it's more exclusive or exclusionary. Like if you happen to be an attractive girl that shows up at Comic-Con, you are treated very, very poorly by some people in that community. If you look like me, and I've been on this, and I walk into a Magic the Gathering store looking like me,
sure,
people won't even look at me or talk to me. Almost like I have no right to be there, right? Yeah. And this is a thing that is growing and growing and growing. And there's almost like it's become the word is gatekeeping. It's a community that has become filled with gatekeepers. And if someone wants to make the Witcher TV show, fans of The Witcher, like the nerds, they're angry. You're showing my thing. Really? This is what you're mad about? It really makes me sad that has become a thing in the community.
And that's something I really, especially in the sword community, I call it the sword sphere. There's all these different LARPs, AMMA, reenactments, and I want to be more of a Toka guy, Eatsu, and bring them all together. And there's always going to be people that hate things or do stuff, but I'm just trying to say, hey, have fun, do your things. People, I don't know if it's through whatever communities or through card communities, all of them, they want to be some level of special or elitist. And then when they see people that maybe look like you or see people that look like me or women or just someone that's just different, sometimes they get really like, oh, well, this isn't really here for you. This isn't that part of, opposed to just being happy and joyous. Or imagine that, judging that person on their actual quality and their worth and seeing what that person's about. And I think the shift's going to start changing because a lot of people, I know especially in your generation, actually in mine as well, and the ones actually under it, they're starting to get this whole nonsense of like, hey, shut up and just have fun. And then if that person speaks
exactly
up and if they show that they're a piece of crap, then yeah, we oust them. But stop reading a book.
And it should be 100% inclusive.
Yeah, like
it really, really should be. You know what I mean? But that's not the world we live in, and it makes me sad that has infiltrated like a space that I hold so dearly.
Yeah, but I think we're gonna stomp it out, and that's what I thought. Like when we said also where there's a whatever man that has a sword in their hand and thinks that that's cool, and then there's some people that want to be gatekeeping on that. They're like, well, if you have swords, then you're lame, or even for women. I remember watching Xena the Warrior Princess as a kid, and that helped me. One, I mean, I know it was a TV show, but Lucy Lawless, the stunts she did, all these things, it made me be like, why can't a woman be badass? And
well, that's the thing too. Like people are mad. I'm glad you brought the woman example. Like they can't have a woman as the main hero of this show. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, that's your issue with this show, that there's a woman who's the lead character. Got it. Okay.
It's horrible. And that's why I'm so glad.
Also tells me everything I need to know about you as a person. If you have an issue with a black dwarf, if you have an issue with a woman Jedi, if you have an issue with a Jedi being homosexual, if you have an issue with anything remotely like that, that tells me everything I need to know about you as a person, and I don't want anything to do with you.
Nope. And that's the times where I'm like, I'll hope that you change, but I'm not going to let you infiltrate my area where I have people that feel comfortable. That's why I was so glad to meet Sydney, the one who introduced us to. For viewers, if you haven't checked out Bombshell with the Barbell, she's an amazing, awesome mother, weightlifter. I think she's in her 40s up there, but she prides herself on that. Some people are like, oh, why are you putting on it? No, she prides herself on that. And she's an amazing individual. And we met through Instagram as well. And when I saw her swing with swords, Ashmen, Giants, Dragon Slayers, and she saw me do my other sport content, we just clicked. And it was really cool to see her when she came to the Arnold's and she got to see me sword fighting. I welcomed her with open arms. She welcomed me. We did some cool content. And after that, it's just been fun. And then that's how she introduced me to Bobby Maximus. And to see some of the struggles that she has to deal with, but she keeps her heads high. And then when some people, I never had anybody, because at least in the fitness expo space, a lot of people seem to be very welcoming. And I think that saying is no one's ever going to talk bad about you if they're doing more than you. It's the people who are doing less than you that maybe they will be like, oh, they'll say things. Everyone's just really positive. And I'm glad.
There's a saying, the weightlifter will never criticize you for going to the gym, right? The rich person will never criticize you for starting a business. The NBA player will never criticize you for picking up a basketball. It's always the wannabes that will. It's always the lesser thans. You're never going to get criticized by somebody above you. It's always people below you. And that's why I said, you go do a better job then. Yeah.
And for your viewers, like when we say below, some people are like, oh, that seems mean to say below. No. We're talking about not like we're better than them, but there's people that are status levels. Bobby Maximus has almost 200,000 followers. This level, there are people that have less. It's just a fact. And this is where some people get so mad about facts, about numbers or other things. But if someone's doing less than you, they're doing less than you. It's a fact.
It's not even, I'll push back on that a little bit. It's not even about having less because they may have more.
That's true.
That person that you look at who's got 200,000 followers, they might be miserable and insecure. That person that has $15 million in the bank, they may be crying themselves to sleep every night. They may be depressed. They may have anxiety. That famous person that you want to be like might be miserable and might trade everything in their lives for a little bit of anonymity. It's the perception of having less. And it's the you got it, I want it mentality.
Yes. No, that is true.
And I don't have that. Right. And so what happens in the real world is you call me up, Bobby, I'm so excited. I just got this massive sponsorship from name a company.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that I will be thrilled for you because I just want to see good people win. There's another type of person, why wasn't it me? The fact that you got it and you're winning now by default means that I'm losing. And that's the mentality that's problematic. It's not actually what you have. It's your perception of what you have.
I'm glad we dived into that a lot better. That's a whole nother mentality. And I've never been that. Like, I don't understand. Like, I can meet you, generally excited. It was interesting. Talk about your stuff. It wasn't like I never compared myself to you. It was like, this is Bobby's journey. I want to hear about Bobby's journey. That's great. I have my journey. Now we can talk about each other's journey and we have things that align. But at not any point in my life, well, why Bobby just get this opportunity and I never did? Or
that's how the world is, right? That's how a lot of people are. And so it's again, it's not less than. Like Patrick Mahomes isn't better than me because he plays in the NFL. I'm not better than Patrick Mahomes because I fought in a cage. They're just different.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that you look in the mirror and you're happy with the choices that you made and happy with the life that you're leading. It doesn't matter what other people have, what other people do, what other people say, what other people think. And people, sadly and unfortunately, they fall into that trap of the grass is always greener.
And then I think this is actually starting to get off to a good point. We'll probably stop soon for our viewers, and then we're going to talk some behind it, some things I just want to ask Bobby questions while I have it, because he's a busy man. But this is something where I feel you are really great with this, where you said, hey, I see what you're doing. If you make the time, come out and train some time. Like, that's something I take very seriously. But people have to understand that you have to put in the time, put in the work, try to be the best you possible. And then it's not up to you if the other person allows these things or looks at it. Sometimes it's other people, and life still allows you situations where sometimes people get opportunities. However, I think it's also something we do, and I've seen you do this with other people, where you're still joyful in giving the knowledge, and you don't paywall all your knowledge. You don't stuff. You're just like, hey, here's some things you can do to just be basic, just be better, work on these things. And then on the other hand, you do deserve to get paid for all the work that you've done. So you can't give out things for free. You can't do this stuff. You've amassed all this knowledge. And for our viewers at home, Fiore, one of the Flower of Battle, Italian Renaissance swordplay, there is one of his books where people ask, why am I having to compensate you so much for learning these sword skills? Especially when they're doing it at a time where they fought, people actually died. He's like, it took me a vast amount of time, money, and effort to get these skills. So that's why I need to be compensated. I think people need to work on that these days.
I agree.
Yeah. And yeah. But I really appreciate you taking the time, Bobby. Thank you so much. Was there anything else that you want to plug that you got going on soon, or just in general, or just a message for people?
No, I mean, if you want to find me, there's two ways. Number one, go to Instagram, go to Twitter, go to Threads, go to the TikTok, go to YouTube, and just type in Bobby Maximus, right? That's number one way. If you want to learn. And I really try to help people. I learned a long time ago that exercise can make you a better person, and not a better person in terms of having a better six-pack abs or better shoulders or better. I really think it's the vehicle to living a better life in all aspects of your life. If you work on yourself and you invest in you, you can have a better marriage. You can have a better relationship. You can be better for your partner. You can be better for your kids. You can be better for your brothers and your sisters. And I really think that by investing in you, you can be the best version of yourself possible. And I try to give as much information for free as possible so that you can learn and hopefully better yourself. Right? The number two way to get a hold of me, but I don't know if you want to do this because you might not like the end result. Go in your bathroom at midnight, turn the lights off, and say Bobby Maximus into the mirror 5 times. But I can't promise what's going to happen after, that you're going to like it. Now, that's number one. But what I really want to say, Spencer, is I'm humbled and honored that you would have me as a guest. It's funny doing these podcasts. I've done, 500, 400, 1,000, 700. Like I've been on a lot of podcasts.
Sure.
And every so often in life, I don't want to say I get complacent.
Yeah.
But these things, sometimes they can seem like a burden. A podcast, answering a DM, answering an email, having to write an article for Men's Health, having to train somebody. Like, I think we all suffer from this. But then perspective comes into play. Do you know how good it felt the first time somebody asked me to be on the podcast?
No, I can only imagine.
Do you know how good it felt the first time Men's Health wanted me to write an article? Do you know how good it felt to sell my first personal training session? Do you know how good it felt to get a DM? Someone asked me for help, right? And I want to ask you, how good did it feel to get your first sponsorship? How good did it feel? So the point I'm trying to make is the fact that you wanted to take your time and your effort to speak to me, it means the world to me. And I mean that from such a genuine place, because it's pretty cool that this is what I get to do for my life. So thank you, honestly, for making my day better and having me on your show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I forgot to ask more about the men's health question, but I think we can leave that for some time. Maybe when we're at a con, we just do a short little something. We got to leave the people wanting more.
Yeah, you always got to leave with a little bit. You always leave something in the bag.
Something in the bag. So it just works out that way. But thank you so much. And I really do appreciate it. I'm so honored that you felt that way. And it felt so genuine. And for the people at home, I think eventually when you do what we do long enough, especially combat sports, when you look into someone else's eyes and see them, you get to see a lot of the bullshit. And then you see people in the real. Bobby Max is a real guy. And I was really glad that you took the time.
Well, thank you. And I try to be that way. Like I'm too old and life's too short to pretend, you know?
Yeah.
And be happy and find joy. Like if you're watching this, just find joy in the little things. Find joy in the things that because it could be snuffed out in a second.
Heartbeat.
And that's a fact. Like you might not have a tomorrow. So better enjoy what you have today.
Well, you guys heard it. And that's from the Wandering Sword Project. Carry on, and we'll cut out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, brother. How was that?